You didn't notice the moment it began. It wasn't loud. No thunder, no revelation. Just a quiet discomfort, like wearing a life that almost fits. You smiled where it was expected. You agreed when something inside you whispered no. And somehow you felt everything, too much, too deeply, yet understood nothing about why. This is how awakening starts for an empath. Not with clarity, but with a question that refuses to leave. Why does this feel wrong if everything looks right? You thought your sensitivity was a flaw. Maybe someone told you that. Maybe you decided it yourself, after years of being too much or too soft. But what if that intensity isn't weakness, but perception? Carl Jung once spoke of the shadow, the unseen parts of us shaping our reality. And empaths, they don't just carry their own shadow, they feel the shadows of others. That heaviness you carry, not all of it is yours. Triggers begin to speak before you do. A tone of voice, a silence, a glance that others ignore but you don't. Your body reacts before your mind can explain. This is not overreaction. This is memory without language. The empath doesn't just remember, they relive. And every trigger is a doorway back to a moment where you first learned to feel for everyone but yourself. You learned early. Peace was something you had to earn. So you adapted. You softened your truth. You became what was needed. You read rooms like sacred texts, and slowly you disappeared. But here's the quiet truth. An empath doesn't lose themselves by accident. They do it to survive. And awakening begins when survival is no longer enough. There comes a moment when you can't unsee it anymore. The patterns, the people, the way you give until there's nothing left, and still feel guilty for wanting more. It's unsettling, almost painful, because awareness is not gentle. It disrupts. It asks you to question everything you once accepted as normal. You start to notice your energy like never before. Who drains you, who fills you, who only appears when you're strong enough to give. And something shifts, not dramatically but deeply. You begin to understand that empathy without boundaries isn't compassion. It's self-abandonment. This is where fear enters. Because if you stop being who they expect, who are you? If you say no, will they leave? If you choose yourself, will you lose everything? The empath's awakening is not just about seeing others clearly. It's about facing the terrifying freedom of becoming yourself. You begin to feel anger, and it surprises you. Not explosive, not chaotic, but clean, honest. A signal that something within you is no longer willing to be ignored. Jung believed that what we resist persists, and your anger has been waiting for you to listen. Something quiet replaces the chaos. Not peace, not yet, but space. You pause before reacting. You question before absorbing. You begin to ask, is this mine? And for the first time, the empath stops carrying the world and starts observing it. You thought awakening would feel like becoming more, but it feels like losing roles, illusions, identities that were never truly yours. And yet, beneath it all, something real begins to breathe. Not who you were told to be, not who you had to be, but who you've always been, waiting quietly underneath the noise. And just as you begin to sense it, another question rises. What happens when the empath stops absorbing and starts transforming? You start noticing something subtle, almost unsettling. The emotions you used to absorb without question now feel separate, like they're brushing against you instead of entering you. Confuses you at first. You wonder if you're becoming cold, distant, less you. But something deeper whispers, this is not loss. This is space. There is a strange loneliness in this phase. Not because people disappear, but because you see them clearly now. Their patterns, their needs, their unconscious pull toward your energy. And you can no longer pretend you don't feel it. The empath doesn't wake up into connection first. They wake up into truth. And truth can feel isolating before it feels freeing. You begin to understand the difference between feeling and merging. Before, there was no boundary. Their pain became your pain. Their chaos, your responsibility. Now, something inside you pauses, observes, not to disconnect, but to choose. And this choice, it changes everything. Guilt arrives quietly. It asks you questions in familiar voices. Why are you different? Why don't you care like before? But you do care, maybe more than ever. You're just no longer willing to disappear inside that care. And this is the moment many empaths almost turn back. Because awakening isn't comfortable. It removes the identity you built around being needed, around being the one who understands, who holds, who heals. If you're not that anymore, who are you? This question doesn't have a quick answer. It unfolds slowly, through silence, through discomfort, through honesty. There are days when your sensitivity feels sharper than ever, like your skin has been turned inside out. You feel energies, intentions, unspoken tensions, more clearly, more intensely. But now you also see something new. You are not powerless in this. Awareness is not a burden. It's the beginning of direction. You begin to experiment with something unfamiliar: distance, not avoidance, not fear, just space. You step back from what drains you. You stay quiet where you once overexplained. And in that space, something unexpected happens. You start to hear yourself. Your inner voice isn't loud. It doesn't demand. It doesn't compete. It simply exists. And for the first time, you realize how long it's been there, waiting beneath the noise of everyone else's needs. The empath's awakening is not about becoming louder. It's about becoming impossible to ignore from within. There is a shift in your relationships. Some deepen, gently, naturally. Others fade, not with conflict, but with clarity. You no longer chase connection. You recognize it. And this recognition feels different, quieter, but real. Not built on saving, fixing, or proving, but on presence. And then, something almost sacred happens. You feel compassion without exhaustion. You listen without losing yourself. You care without carrying. This is new, and it feels like balance, though you don't call it that yet. You just know something has changed, because the empath was never meant to drown in the world. They were meant to understand it, not by absorbing everything, but by seeing clearly, feeling deeply, and choosing consciously. And as this awareness settles into you, another quiet realization begins to form. If you are no longer defined by what you feel from others, then what is your true power? There is a moment when you stop asking for permission, not out of rebellion, but out of recognition. You see how often you waited for approval, for reassurance, for someone to mirror your worth back to you. And now something shifts. You begin to stand in your own perception, even if no one else confirms it. You start to notice how silence changes. Before, it was heavy, filled with overthinking, second-guessing, quiet anxiety. Now, it becomes something else, a place where your energy returns to you, where you no longer have to interpret, absorb, or translate anyone else. And in that silence, you feel whole without effort. There is a new kind of awareness in your body. Tension speaks louder. Ease becomes unmistakable. You recognize the difference between intuition and fear, not as ideas, but as sensations. The empath was always intuitive, but now you trust it without needing to explain it. You begin to see how much of your life was built on anticipation. Reading moods, preventing conflict, adjusting yourself before anything even happened. Felt like control, but it was survival. And now you slowly release that pattern. You let moments unfold without trying to manage them. And strangely, the world doesn't collapse. There's a grief that surfaces unexpectedly, not for people, but for versions of yourself. The one who overgave, the one who stayed too long, the one who thought love had to be earned through exhaustion. You don't judge that version anymore. You understand them, and in that understanding, something soft heals. Your sensitivity begins to feel different, less like an open wound, more like a refined instrument. You don't pick up everything anymore, only what resonates, only what matters. And this selectivity isn't coldness, it's clarity, learning how to breathe. You start choosing presence over performance. You no longer feel the need to prove your kindness, your depth, your understanding. You simply are. And those who can meet you there, stay. Those who can't, drift away without resistance. For the first time, connection feels mutual, not extracted. There is a quiet power in your no. Not sharp, not defensive, just steady. And every time you say it without guilt, something inside you stabilizes. The empath learns that boundaries are not walls. They are the shape of self-respect. You begin to experience moments of alignment, where your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions match. No inner conflict, no hidden resistance, just a simple, grounded sense of rightness. It doesn't last forever, but you recognize it now. And once you recognize it, you can return to it. And then, the realization deepens. Your gift was never meant to be used against you. Your empathy was never meant to drain you. It was meant to be directed, consciously, intentionally, powerfully. Because the awakened empath doesn't just feel the world. They influence it, not through force, not through control, but through presence that no longer bends, no longer disappears, no longer forgets itself. And as you begin to live from that place, another question rises. Quieter now, but stronger than before. What can you create when your energy finally belongs to you? You begin to notice how little you need to explain yourself now. Where you once searched for the right words to be understood, you now let your presence speak. And if it isn't received, you don't shrink, you don't chase. You simply remain. There is a quiet dignity in that, a rootedness that cannot be negotiated. Energy becomes something you direct, not something you lose. You feel where it flows, where it leaks, where it multiplies. And for the first time, you choose where it goes. Not everyone gets access. Not every situation deserves your depth. And this isn't distance, it's discernment awakening. You start to see through intensity. What once pulled you in, strong emotions, dramatic connections, overwhelming bonds, now reveals something underneath. Need, pattern, unhealed cycles repeating themselves. And you no longer confuse intensity with truth. You wait for something quieter, something real. There's a moment where you realize you are no longer afraid of being misunderstood, because you understand yourself. And that changes the equation completely. You stop shaping yourself into something more acceptable, more digestible. You let people meet you where you are, or not at all. Your compassion becomes precise. It no longer spills everywhere. It lands exactly where it's meant to, without draining you, without dissolving you. You can care and still walk away. You can love and still choose yourself. And this balance feels almost unfamiliar, yet deeply right. You begin to trust timing. Before, you rushed into connections, into decisions, into giving. Now you pause. You watch. You feel. You allow things to reveal themselves without interference. And in that patience, you see more than you ever did through urgency. Your inner world becomes richer than the external noise. Not as an escape, but as a foundation. You no longer depend on constant input, constant validation, constant connection. There is depth within you that sustains you. And from that depth, you choose how to engage with the world. There is a subtle detachment that forms. Not cold, not distant, just free. You can be present without being entangled. You can feel without absorbing. You can witness without losing your center. And this is where your power stabilizes. You start to recognize others like you, not by what they say, but by what they don't need to prove. There is a quiet resonance, a mutual understanding that doesn't demand explanation. And these connections, they don't drain you, they expand you. And then, almost without noticing when it happened, you are no longer awakening. You are awake, not in perfection, not in constant clarity, but in awareness that doesn't leave you, even when things get difficult. You return to yourself faster. You lose yourself less. You trust what you feel and what you don't. Because the empath's awakening was never about becoming someone new. It was about remembering, and then choosing again and again not to forget. And from here, life doesn't become easier. It becomes truer. There is a quiet moment when you realize you are no longer searching. Not because you've found every answer, but because the need to chase them has softened. You move differently now. Not pulled by urgency, not driven by lack, but guided by something steady within you. You begin to trust what doesn't make sense to others. The pauses, the distance, the decisions that feel right but look unclear from the outside. You no longer betray your inner knowing just to be understood, because you've learned clarity within is more valuable than approval from without. The world hasn't changed. People still project, still take, still move unconsciously through their own patterns. But you are no longer available in the same way. Not closed, not hardened, just unavailable for what costs you yourself. There is a new kind of strength in you. It doesn't argue. It doesn't defend. It simply stands. And in that stillness, you notice something unexpected. You no longer feel the need to prove your depth, because you live it. You start to see your past differently, not as a series of mistakes, but as a path of initiation. Every moment you overgave, overfelt, overextended, was shaping your awareness, not to keep you there, but to bring you here. There are moments now where everything feels aligned. Not perfect, but coherent. Your energy, your choices, your presence, they move in the same direction. And even when life challenges you, you don't collapse the way you once did. You bend, you feel, you return. You understand something most never fully see, that empathy is not about carrying others. It's about seeing them without losing sight of yourself. And in that balance, something almost sacred emerges. Connection without sacrifice. There is peace in your boundaries now. Not tension, not fear of rejection, just clarity. You no longer wait for people to understand them. You live them, and those meant for your life adjust without needing explanation. You feel your energy as something whole, not fragmented across people, places, expectations. It returns to you, it gathers, it strengthens. And from that wholeness, you begin to create, not from emptiness, but from overflow. And then, the final realization arrives quietly, almost unnoticed. The awakening was never something that happened to you. It was something that remembered itself through you. You were never too sensitive. You were never too much. You were simply unaware of your own depth. Now you see it. Now you stand in it. Not as someone who has escaped the world, but as someone who can move through it without disappearing. And this is the true awakening of the empath. Not just to feel deeply, but to exist fully within that depth. Without fear, without loss, without forgetting who you are. If something in this story felt familiar, I'd be curious what part stayed with you the longest. Share it quietly in the comments. And if you want to explore this depth further, you can stay here with me. Just subscribe and we'll continue the journey together. Thank you for watching.